All right, Max, what do we got today? Big one today. Boom. The Puerto Rican War, a graphic history by John Vasquez Mejias, I believe is how you say this. This is a really cool story about basically something I knew nothing about. Essentially, there was like an attempted revolution in Puerto Rico in the 1950s. And this is really the story of that for some like Puerto Rican nationalists to wrest control of Puerto Rico from the United States. And it involves an assassination attempt of Harry Truman at the time, who famously dropped the bombs in World War II on Japan. And big picture, it's that story of the people that took part of this. And I know a bit about Puerto Rico. I've never been personally. My advisor's from there, and so and technically Puerto Rico not an official country. It's technically, I believe, like a territory of the United States. But just a really really cool, really 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 powerful story about this moment in history. So, without further ado, into the patented scoring system. Did I have to revert to using crayons today for my kids? Yes, I did. Let's start off with the characters. So there are a bunch of characters in this book. You actually get at the end of this book a bit of a character summary, which looks like this. Like Blanca or Harry S. Truman. You get to sort of at the end. This might actually belong better at the beginning of the book, to be honest. And Grazilio, I think is how you'd say it, and Oscar. Again, two of the premier people involved in the assassination attempt. So the book bounces around a little bit. It starts with sort of some revolutionaries that get into a firefight with troops. Griselio is definitely, I would say, the main character of this story. You see him kind of growing up and his interactions with being sort of like brought into the nationalist movement and feeling at certain points quite literally like divinely inspired. He I guess, was visited by Gandhi and Michael Collins, who is like an Irish revolutionary. That's part of the story here, is like sort of a supernatural intervention of sorts. The characters are cool. The characters. So this is probably the most negative thing I'm going to say this entire review. Some of what I don't. This is the second time I've reread this book, and I think again when I don't remember the characters super duper distinctly, it can't be an incredibly high score. And the probably for as strong as the art is, which I'm going to get into in a minute here too, I think one of the weaker parts of the art is that I often had trouble, especially at the beginning of rereading this, like reacquainting myself with who is who. Like some of the, it's just such a unique visual style that I think, quickly figuring out who you're looking at was something that I didn't feel was quite as easy to do. Some of the pages, again, for the characters can be, there's just a lot going on here. But again, you get basically a couple main characters that are like Puerto Rican revolutionaries, nationalists, and then mainly Harry S. Truman, and some of the troops that were guarding him essentially. So yeah, solid character score. I think I'm gonna transition now into a whole bunch of positive stuff in a row. The art style, again, just made it a little hard to keep track of some of the characters, which I think is why I didn't remember them as much. And that's not really the reason I came back to reread this story, to be honest. But now on to the extremely powerful parts of this book and why I think it's such a high recommend in general. So the art, I already showed this bit. I gave it an 8 out of 10. First of all, because this is like a work of love. I'm not going to read the entire introduction here, but basically, I've never seen a graphic novel like this before. this guy basically, I think, carved wood. Like, he did not draw this as much as he sort of like stamped it. Like, he would make wooden carvings, which is why this looks so distinct and unique, and like stamp the pages. So this took him a decade to make. Incredible. So just the devotion to telling the story using such an interesting medium. I'm spoiling myself here a bit, but I thought the art was just so distinctly rememberable. It was just, I remembered so much of it because of just, I'd never read a graphic novel before. I'm going to sort of cheat here and jump to the X Factor too, just to give a, jumping forward a little bit. Just the art style itself is like already got to be in a way above average X Factor score, because that is nuts to spend 10 years essentially doing something. I don't know if this is like popular. I've just never seen a graphic novel made by carving, 90 plus pages worth of like wood. And I just thought it gives such a cool aesthetic vibe. It's so memorable. Like, the second I picked this book up, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, the art of this was so distinct and unique. Incredible what the guy was able to do. And again, there's so much texture and detail into this. This is why it took 10 years. Like, every single page is like a little work of art by itself, in this laborious manner. So cool. I thought the art really stuck out. Again, this is probably the only thing that's ever going to be in black and white that I would give an 8 or higher for the art score. But I just think the medium, the method, the end result is so memorable, distinct, interesting. Definitely, almost like for that reason alone, you could imagine picking this book up. And then for the history culture, I give this again a strong 7. Like, they're addressing a very historical moment, one that I just had never even heard about. You get to see these guys go from Puerto Rico to the U.S., trying to coordinate this ultimate battle and assassination attempt. You get a lot of, again, some look and feel of Puerto Rico. Even basic stuff is like the food, the fruits, the housing, some of the key characters in the political movement. I think they do a great job at getting this across. So yeah, this is a very targeted book, which again, I kind of appreciate. It's not trying to tell you everything about a country or territory in this case. It's really trying to tell a story about this very specific group of people, part of this historical time, and I think it does justice to that really, really well. I never knew about this, Puerto Rican war, but they do a great job telling it. Why is it not a higher score? I think that some of it is that you just have to read between the lines quite a lot, and also, not to say it like ends. I guess the very last point is that sometimes these books, I would say, they give you a piece of history, but some of it almost has to like finish in a way that helps you marry it with a broader story. And this didn't do that as much to me. It was like a crazy thing that happened, but there was a little bit of this to me because of just how the story was told, that I was like, so what did that mean ultimately? Like, this is the most, maybe the most similar, maybe as a comparison, the Nat Turner book, which I reviewed a couple weeks ago. Again, a very grisly story, similar in the sense where there was a violent approach to deal with, I think, oppression, for very different reasons, with very different levels of not trying to say they're the same. It's just like a similar type of story. I think that story did end in a way that you could help contextualize how bloody as it was and probably bad as it was something that also gave people hope that they weren't like powerless. And I think some of this story just didn't feel like it quite as much married to me like a bigger, broader idea. But the way they tell it is awesome. And so, they still touch on a lot of things about Puerto Rico I didn't know. So I still think a strong score. Readability, very, very high. Like, I reread this entire book in one sitting. Very good sign for readability. I think I don't think there's it's like just under 100 pages, kind of the main bulk of it. If you want to read like the timeline of Puerto Rico or some of the interview stuff at the end, that's a little longer, but an extremely readable book. In terms of length, in terms of, I think, just like interest and just like the uniqueness of it, it really was like a propelling book to me. I think the only knocks on it are, like I've talked about many times, it's hard to do all of these elements perfectly. The uniqueness of the art style sometimes does hurt readability to me. Like some of the scenes, like it's just like even following along, they look beautiful, but like I do think like the style does make it harder sometimes to differentiate things and just keep track of the action. There's a really cool part at the end. This is probably the last part I'll say for the X Factor, which I think is really cool too, where I just had never seen this, but the book tells you to read the next couple pages very quickly, I think, to get the idea across of the action sequence that's following. Super interesting. But like, yeah, if you go too quick, some of the, again, I just think the art style can be so complex and intricate. It's almost like maybe my eyes just never got used to it. Maybe other people don't have this problem, but I had to devote a little bit more time and energy just to keeping track of stuff and the characters because of the really unique way this is expressed. And yeah, I've already talked about it. For the art alone, the method alone, the pure devotion, and the cool story. I think this is the first like assassination attempt story I've ever read that's connected to a historical thing. All of it was just super innovative and interesting. So I think overall high X Factor too. Takes us up to a 7.2, which is, I think, in way above average, like a really, really strong book. I would say pick this up if you ever see it. You could read the entire thing in an hour and probably spend more on it than that, just appreciating how it looks. But yeah, high suggest. We'll leave it at that. Till next one.